Yeah. Go ahead.
Hello! Hi, Reem! Nice to see you. And welcome into the Skybox. We're going to stay in the same place this week as last week. I know I like changing the venue, but I kind of like being in the middle of the road and overlooking a river. It suits my mood today. So, nice to see you all. As a recap, can anybody tell me what we were talking about last week? It's not a trick question, I do know. I'm not trying to get you to remind me. I have actually got a note here about what we finished speaking about last week. But I just want to see if anybody who's here can remember. Me being mean.
Yeah.
You listened to the recording, Marco.
Oh,
Yeah, you weren't here last week, were you? You listened. Great. That's another reason for streaming, by the way. If you're coming to a series like this where we've been discussing the same thing for a few weeks and you miss one, it does mean you can catch up the book reading as well. If you miss one of the sessions but you attend regularly, it's not a bad idea, even if you fast forward a little bit, just to get an idea. Oh, what did I miss? Did I miss anything? And can I catch up? And you can ask a question in the forum, don't forget. Okay. Monique, take the mic.
okay, last week we were talking about the last three questions that you left us. And we were talking about how important is socializing in business life in your country, and also what are typical topics for small talk in Australia, and more about Australia. So I think I'm not sure if we answered the last question. So if an
We
Australian
didn't,
invited you to,
yeah, we
yeah,
didn't really get
okay,
onto that. We talked about small
exactly.
talk, and the awful price you have to pay for making small talk in Australia is to learn about Australian rules football and have an
Yep.
interest in the big horse races in Australia. There's one particular, the Melbourne Cup. Everybody goes nuts over it, and it is the topic of conversation for weeks before and weeks after. In fact, people take time off work to go, or just to watch it on television. And that's a pretty high price, I think. And then we got on to, or we were about to start, and I think we just basically asked the question, but we didn't really discuss it, I don't think. Is if an Australian invited you to their home, would it mean you're close friends? Are you best buddies? Because somebody says, why don't you come round for dinner tomorrow? Why don't you come to my party at my house, at my home? It's a big deal in some cultures to be invited into somebody's home. You think yes because Zom said yes. Don't believe everything Zom tells you, Shiny. Hello, Zom. By the way, Zom sometimes watches these just to find out what we've been getting up to. I mean, of course, yes, in some circumstances. And you can generally tell by the nature of the invitation and what happens when you get there, but not necessarily. Yes, yes, say nice things about her. We only ever say nice things about people on the network. Well, when we're streaming anyway. When we're not streaming, well, you can make your own mind up what we say. Okay, so who would like to start reading? Save my voice. I think I've caught Shiny's cold. I was coughing so much this morning. It's calmed down now, but I've got a cup of tea here and a bog frog. Yes, you heard me. I've got a bog frog. You have to go to Boston if you ever want to know what a bog frog is. Yep, Monique, thank you for volunteering. Okay.
Okay. Um, Australian openings, yeah. For example, an invitation to meet at the weekend is often interpreted in some culture as an offer of friendship. However, behavior like this is part of the culture and does not necessarily mean anything special or that you will have a lot of contact with this person again.
Yeah. Not necessarily interpreted. By the way, nicely caught that one.
Interpreted.
Interpreted, yeah. I mean, often we think about interpretation in sort of translating one language into another. You might have an interpreter, somebody who's very skilled at translation, but you can also interpret people's behaviour. You can interpret or misinterpret body language, tone of voice, jokes, dangerous things. And we said last week that Australians see themselves as open, relaxed, friendly. We met Katie on Tuesday. I've lost track of the week, but on Tuesday. And, you know, she's from that part of the world, not strictly Australian, but lived there. Born and raised in New Zealand. Very open, very friendly, I thought. I don't know if you all agree. Typical Australian. Okay, if it's breaking up, I can give you the stream link, which will have a clearer... But there's always the danger of lag. Okay, as April found out on Tuesday, I think it's about 6, 7, 10 second delay between what we say here and what goes into YouTube. And that's nothing I can do about that. That's a YouTube thing. Just a bit. Oh, sorry about that.
That is big disadvantage. That is big disadvantage in conversation.
It certainly is. It can be. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything I can do to improve my sound quality in World. I'm using my usual browser. I have cleared my cache, but okay, if you can put up with it, I'm going to make you do most of the talking anyway. So another volunteer, please. Any questions before we move on? Anything you'd like to say? Everything's okay? Good. Well, let me just ask each of you, because I like you all to talk in these sessions. So, let me see, who turned up first? I think it was you, Marco. Is it very meaningful if you invite somebody to your home? Or is it somebody, you know, you just invite anybody from work, meet them in the street? What meaning does it have for you?
Well, it's maybe it doesn't mean like that we will keep that friendship, because it's not big deal like give someone a meal, but actually.
I mean, do you often do it? Do you often have people round? That's what we call it, by the way, to have someone round. Nothing to do with the shape, okay? So if you say, why don't you come round? Yeah, why don't you come round for coffee? That's the normal. It used to be for tea, but now it's for coffee. Why don't you come round for coffee? Okay.
Yes, but it is yes. Now it's more like a family or good friends, best man or something like it. It was before a situation when I think that it's the same. Like now, that is more common for teenagers. That there are a lot of acquaintances and not just as good friends, and you can invite them. But nowadays, maybe it's like when you are in a family and have a lot of different stuff. That's just like family reunions or with some good friends. It's not big deal. I can invite someone. I don't expect that I will that person will be my friend for forever, just for this invitation. But yes, it was. I think that it's like maybe it was it is about the generation, about the age of your living. Like it was
Yeah.
more common when I was teenager
Yeah, I
than
think
now
teenagers are
nowadays.
just less uptight than adults, aren't they? Yeah, pop round anytime, no need to make an appointment, no need to become an adult and you think, I don't want that person in my house. Maybe it's because the teenagers don't actually own everything in the house, they're not frightened of it all being stolen. Okay, you did say something I want to just clarify, Marco. Rima, best man, did you mention best man?
I think that they like on wedding you're
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what best
like
man
a
means.
godfather.
Yeah.
Godfather. Is that how do you call it? Is that I thought that it's British
Yeah, it is a wedding thing.
terminology.
Your best man is your closest friend. You're the person getting married, and you need a best man to help you get to the church, hold the ring, make sure everything's smooth, arrange the bachelor party. That is your best man. I wasn't sure where, because the best man would already be a very close friend, usually from childhood or your oldest friend. So that would be an established relationship. It's very doubtful you'd go out on the street and say, would you mind being my best man? It has happened, though, because you also need them to be a witness to the marriage. And if you're getting married on the sly or very quickly, you might not have a witness. So, yes, you can use it for that. Shiny's typing away here. How do they develop the friendship? Well, we'll discuss that in a bit, actually, Shiny. But yes, just because I like you doesn't mean I'm falling in love with you. It doesn't mean I want to marry you. Yeah, some people do misinterpret friendliness for flirting and politeness for flirt, especially online. Oh my goodness, that's why I like to get it very clear. Happily married, quite elderly, don't bother. Save your energy for somebody else. Traum. If you're watching this and that is a disappointment, I apologise, but it's true. So, Traum, what about you? Is it very meaningful if you invite somebody into your home? I know you've got kids as well, so is there a different meaning for them? Traum, have you got voice? Okay, Tram's gone off to make a cup of tea. Or maybe she's just invited somebody round into her house.
Sorry, I'm here.
Ah, there you are. It's okay, it's okay.
Okay. I am here and I can hear you very well. Lynn, can you hear me? So silent.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you, yes. I did type 111. Keep an eye on local chat.
Okay.
So,
Did
Tram,
you hear the question?
did you hear the question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I
Monique.
don't think so.
I don't think so. Okay, Tram, is it very meaningful to you and in your culture generally to invite people into your home?
To invite who to my home?
Anybody, a colleague, somebody you meet and you like, your boss,
Yes.
your husband's boss.
No, oh my God, no, thank you, no.
Don't panic.
No. I have to say I like to I don't like to visit to invite my friends because I would like to go to a cafe or have a walk. It's more nice when we have to speak about a special issue also. Yes, and yeah, so sometimes I cook for the trainers of my girl, and the one who gives her a massage. That's that I like. but at home, my family is always around, and it's. But when we have to speak about something in special, then I would like to be outside of the house with my friends when they have a problem or I have a problem. Um, yes, and when I even like to go to a cafe to a cafe. Um, so I don't have any job to do or work to do, and the other one is the same. It's comfy and gives us more pleasure when we out of home.
And you don't have to tidy up.
Yes, and I don't have to make a cake.
Okay. Interesting. What about you, Monique? How is it for you? Do you find it's easy to invite people
Uh,
around? Is it part of the culture, or?
uh, yeah, I would say that yeah, it's part of the culture, but also I think it's meaningful, at least to me, for me, because I don't know. I think that if I will invite someone over, is because some way I know that person, or it's like in my circle of trust or something like that. Because I think that my home it's something that is that I really respect, and I really want people that I really like. So yeah, so maybe when I do something like that is because I really care about that person, and I know that the people that I invite is just nice people, or at least I can feel the same from them. So I think it's meaningful. So not I don't invite anyone here. No way. No.
Okay, interesting. No, I mean trust is a big thing for me too. I'm not somebody who has people that I don't know that well in my home. I'm more like Kamina. Yeah, let's meet up for coffee. Neutral ground. And I feel uncomfortable if people invite me to their home whom I don't know very well. And I'm like, why? I think I've watched too much Silence of the Lambs, Come round for dinner and a nice Chianti. You don't know me. Why are you inviting me to your home? And yet, in some cultures, it's a real honour. And you don't want to snub the person by saying, "Oh no, I haven't got the time," kind of thing. Maybe I'm just socially inept. Tough guy, how is it in your culture if you invite somebody to your home? Is it a big deal, or do you just do it all the time? Everybody's welcome, open house.
Yes, actually, it's a very common thing here in India. If you have joined a gym, if there is a guy, that person is getting married, so that person is going to invite each and every person to his marriage, the members of that gym. Okay, so it's quite it's quite common here, and there is a saying in Hindi that Atiti Devo Bhava. So that means that your guest is equivalent to the god. Okay, so you should be respecting the people who are coming to your home. Even if that person is your enemy, that person should be respected. But the thing is that nowadays the people, they have changed. Our forefathers, they did practice this thing. But nowadays there are a lot of guy people outside, right? You just cannot believe each and every person. So if you are saying that I'm going to invite a stranger to my house, nowadays no way, I'm not going to. Just if you are a colleague, so please stay in the office, at the office. Okay, so I'm not going to invite you to my home. But my friends, they are always welcome. They do not have to take my permission. If they wanna come at my home at night as well, at 12 a.m., then it's okay. I do not have any problem. But I'm not going to invite any stranger to my home, because the environment, the society, the ambience, and the people, they have changed a lot. You just cannot believe every second person nowadays. So this is a very big deal. This is a very big problem nowadays. But yes, Indians, if you're talking about the Indian people, yes, we do like to invite people to our home and to serve them as well.
Okay, interesting. And yes, the idea of the guest being king, or being treated with incredible amount of respect, and yes, no harm must come to it. Now that's also in older traditions of the UK, guest rights. You had guest rights, and once you'd broken bread with somebody, literally eaten with them in your house, that you could not do anything to them, anything bad, you know. Game of Thrones fans will know that the wedding feast, the blood wedding, yes, broke all the rules. That's the kind of British in the past rule. Again, that's maybe why I don't invite that many people round to my house until I've got to know them quite well, because I feel, well, if I do want to kill them, I can't. Yeah, that's the one. Oh, wasn't that a horrible... Sorry, spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't watched Game of Thrones, sorry. The blood wedding.
Now it's too late.
I know, sorry. I'll maybe put a note on you can get death threats for worse than that, you know, on spoiler alerts. I'll put a little spoiler alert if I remember to on the video. Oops. Reem, what about in your culture? How likely is it? You are grey to me, by the way, but it's fine. I'll zoom in on your face. How likely is it that you would invite somebody into your home from work, a colleague you don't know very well? Does it mean anything, or is it a casual invitation? Okay. Have you got voice, Reem? You've got a white dot, I think. Or maybe not. Oh, white dot. No, white dot is there. No? Okay, I can't hear Reem. Sorry, Reem. We'll move on. Marco. Oh,
Hello?
hey, hello. Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes, Leon, it is, we invented the French to our house. Actually, not for dinner or for meal, that is, if there are something special, some from travels or in Ramadan or in Eid, we invent it. If we are close friends, we invent it for dinner or meal in any time. Actually, we don't we go out, but that is coming to our house is not famous. We can that more go outside. Sometimes we go for grand garden or for in weekend. It is sound okay?
Yeah, you've got a lot of background noise on your when you watch the stream. I don't know if other people can hear it.
Yeah.
It's almost like somebody's sawing your desk in half or something. But yes, I think you like going out for a meal quite a bit, don't you? You like going out at the weekend. Am I right? Have I got the right Reem?
Yeah. Yes.
I thought so. Yes.
We make many kinds, many types of food, not only one. It is make us tired. Actually, not one or two. We must make 3 types or sometimes 4.
Gosh, that must be so expensive. I hope going out isn't too expensive in your country. Okay, we have got a very... I'm struggling very hard to hear you, but it is a meaningful thing to have people round for a meal at your home. That's what I got from that, okay? Okay, I'll better move away from you because everybody's going to have a headache. And Marco, Marco, we've already talked to. Shiny, can you speak today or are you saving your voice? No, that's fine. Don't worry. Not an issue. Okay. Next person to read. Marco, are you okay to read?
Okay.
Okay, so we talked about inviting people round. The next question is, how do people regard differences in status in your country or organisation? Because sometimes it's normal for the boss to invite the employees round, but it would be seen as inappropriate for the employee to invite the boss round. Now, I'm not very good at that kind of thing. If I'm inviting people, especially people I work with, I'll invite everybody, including the boss, because I feel sorry for bosses because they never get invited. And I'm not trying to win brownie points. It's just the way I am. Invite one, invite them all. Don't do it often, but when I do it big. So, let me give you your text. Marco, here you go.
Okay. In some countries, when it comes to job titles, hierarchy and salary, people start to act differently. For example, it is fairly common for the manager to delegate work to his staff and for the chief executive of a company not to have any direct contact with most employees. In Australia, hierarchical differences exist, but they aren't that obvious.
Well done. Hierarchical. Fantastic. I was ready.
We had it.
I know, but I'm amazed that you remembered. Well done. Okay, so how important is hierarchy in your organisation, Marco? Rima?
Yes, it's kind of important. I could now I'm researcher, but before in previous company when I worked where I worked for, and there were I think here is like maybe it's people from similar position spend more time than maybe it's not. I think so. Maybe it's quite different. I can't generalize, but
No, that's fine. What do you call your bosses? Do you use their surname? Do you use their first name? Do you use their title? Do you call them boss?
oh, I call them with their name. Yes, if just comes someone who is very important, like maybe some one of the main directors, or how to say it,
a managing
CEO
director or
something.
CEO, yes. Managing director is more of a
Yes.
British thing, and CEO is a bit American, but we have both now in organisations in the UK. So would you call the CEO Bob? Or-
Yes. Okay, maybe just managing director or something like it. If someone is so, but my direct superior, I call him or her with their names, just regular name. No, boss, can I ask you? No, just with their name. Only if someone around, someone very like as I said, like maybe main director, but it's rare occasions.
Okay. Does anybody here call their boss Mr. or Mrs. or Ms.? Or is it all first names? Shani's just put hierarchical differences exist in Japan, and I think you mean and they're obvious. You can tell it by their language. Monique, take the mic.
I would say that in my country is common. I mean, it depends on the company, and it depends of the role. I mean, if or your position, because I mean, if you are, for example, another manager, I mean, you are allowed just to call people just by their names. But if you are just another, or maybe like I mean, when you are just under those yeah, or not hierarchy, but maybe that important positions. Some of them call them boss, hey boss, and or chief. It depends, of course, of the on the position, but it happens here. So, but if you are just another executive or something like that, it's not necessary, even if
Just
it's
another
the president of the
executive. I
company.
love it.
Yeah,
Just one of them.
yeah,
The ten a penny. Yeah, we
exactly.
say it
So you have the
depends.
right
Yeah, it depends
on.
on something, not it depends of. It's always it depends on. And yeah, you're right. I mean, where's the cut-off point? It's almost an unwritten rule. And it can also depend on where you are and who you're talking to and talking with in a group. If you're with customers, you're more likely to say Mr. or Mrs. so-and-so. And if you're just in the office, it could go back to Bob and Lynn, etc. So I guess it depends on where you are. Okay. So, any questions before I get my next reader, which will be, I think this time, Traum? Are you ready to read Traum?
Yes, I am, Len.
Good.
Okay. Could you give me the text, please?
Yep. Okay, so I'm just going to read out what Shiny's written because she can't speak for herself today. Same meaning but different words and grammar, I guess. Yes, that's also true in German. To different people, the elderly co-workers, friends, people younger than you. Yeah. And the elderly difference as well. That exists in Germany still. But I think, Rima, you mentioned younger people behave differently. Tough Guy, you mentioned things are changing. Yeah, and they should. Generation to generation, things should change. Hang on, Traum. Let me just let Marco take the mic. Rima, take the mic.
Yes, because Shani mentioned, I always call, like if someone is generation of my father and mother or elder, I call them, but it's in Serbian, I don't know how to say it. It's similar, like, not like uncle, but something like, call them like, to show some kind of respect or something like it, or for ladies which are whose are the same generation as my mother, I call them. But it's we have specific terminology which is quite different from British for relatives, and we call similar as aunt, but we have specific names for just the generation of our mothers and our fathers. Yes, and I call usually that people with that names if I know them or something like it. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
In the real life, no, not in a company or something
Yeah,
like it. If someone arrives, okay.
in your personal life. I mean, your
Yeah,
company
yeah.
is also your real life, you know. But
Yes.
in your personal life. Oh, and by the way, be careful mentioning the word generation. It's all right. I'm
Okay.
just thinking about the
Fine.
game. I'm thinking about the English radio game now. Everybody said
Yes.
generation or generations, and they were all wrong. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, Linda, can I ask what is different ages and generation? Is that any, or I can't get it?
If you
Is
just
that-
do define, Google define age and
Oh,
generation,
okay,
you'll
okay.
find out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Traum, if you're ready, here's your text. Okay.
Being seen to be a good team player is important, and anyone who tries to make themselves out to be better than their colleagues does not make a good team player. A key management function is team building and bonding sessions, often including food and drink, are actively encouraged. This kind of interpersonal contact is usually informal in Australia, including between people of different stages.
Very good. Just one thing, status. Well done for getting building. Ignore the typo in that. Team building, of course, not biddling. So well done, you spotted that, Traum. Okay.
Okay, building, yeah, building.
Building, yes, but status. Status, not stages.
Status.
Status, yes. Good. So, yes, in Australia, it's all about being a member of a team, including when you're the manager. You have to be part of the team. You can't just become a manager and that's it. You just tell everybody what to do all the time. And team building and bonding sessions are quite common. And I think, again, this is something that has changed over the years. I've been involved in a few managerial positions, and quite often part of that is to set up group activities and to get people involved and enthused, from building rafts to get across rivers to just quiz nights and evenings out for a meal, etc. It's a big part of UK business culture in many organisations, and it can cut across all the status, all the hierarchy. Okay, any questions?
Lina, I forgot what you said about Boston. You mentioned something, but
Bog frogs. I
Bog
finished them
frogs.
now. I'm sorry, you can't have one. Bog frogs from Boston. Yes. That's what I was having with my cup of tea. Nothing to do with the session. Okay, next person to read, if there's no questions. Who hasn't read yet? Reem, I hope you don't mind, but with the background noise you've got, it would be very difficult to give you feedback. Tough Guy, would you like to read?
Yes.
Okay. There's your text.
Okay. This doesn't mean that hierarchical differences do not exist in Australia, but they deal with it in another way. Basically, everybody in the company knows who the boss is and that he or she earns more than everybody else. So there is no need to rub people's noses in it. The ideal manager in Australia is not a long fighter. What is preferred is more the buddy type who tries to have as much direct contact with the employees as possible and who is interested in what they do. Authoritarian behavior can quickly lead to resistance.
Yeah, so basically acting the big boss can be very counterproductive. You can really make enemies in the team if you start being the big boss. Just the one word, Tough Guy, preferred, not preferred. Try it?
Prefer.
That's it,
Preferred.
good. Nicely read, nicely read. Now, does everybody know what it means if you rub someone's nose in something? To rub your nose in something. When might you do that? Has anybody tried to do it to you? Sometimes on the not quite, no, Shiny, it's almost the opposite.
to investigate about your wage or something like it. Is it?
No. It would be more... Okay, you must have noticed this on the internet. When you type something, when you write something, somebody will often come along and just go, learn to spell or learn grammar, or even though you're obviously learning English, they'll just come and they'll pick up every little mistake and they will rub your nose in it. Every single little punctuation, lack of capitalisation, spelling mistake. Okay, to
So
rub.
it's like a scold when you scold someone, but also make feel that person bad,
Yeah,
at the
it's
same
to
time.
belittle somebody, to really go, ooh, you did that, and you just don't give up either. You just keep on and on about it. You really Every little mistake you pick up on it and you tell everybody about it and you mention it again and again, really rubbing somebody's nose in it. And I think it comes from a punishment that used to happen to dogs, which I really do not approve of, and I've never used myself. If a dog made a mess on the floor, the idea was to rub the dog's nose in the mess, okay, to teach it not to do it again. Very old-fashioned way of dog training and very frowned upon now, but I think that's where the idiom comes from, to rub someone's nose in it. Okay, so it's not sneaking, no, and it's not flattery, it's more being quite, to tell someone off, but being I mean, you can tell someone off, you shouldn't do that, but without rubbing their nose in it, making a big thing about it, okay, and making people feel, oh, I feel so small now. Okay, to belittle, yes, that's a good way of putting it, yeah, and you just, yeah, mocking, and there's a lot of it going on the internet, yeah, a lot of it goes on the internet.
Do you mean between Trump and Obama?
Well, yes, I mean, that. Oh, please don't mention President, but my blood pressure will go up. Brexit, yeah? People are getting their noses rubbed in it. What a stupid vote it was. I'm all for that. Sometimes rubbing someone's nose in it is actually quite a good idea, especially when somebody's made such a mess of things. Hello, Lisa. Nice to see you. You found us. Well done. Yay. Sorry, I didn't notice you log in. So we're talking about doing business in Australia, and we've been talking about hierarchy in Australia and how doesn't really exist in the same way as many other countries. It's not as important. It exists, it's there, but you can't make a big thing about being the big boss. Okay?
Can it be that the Australians are not so nice as they do, especially when it comes to work, because of the hierarchy? They like to do or to show.
Well, it's more likely that you'll find your boss working with you, just rolling his sleeves up and working alongside you, than a boss that just tells you what to do all the time and you never see. And I mean, in some American companies, I know people don't even know who their boss is. They've never met them. That's unlikely in an Australian organisation. I think it's a little patriarchal sometimes. Patriarchal means sort of trying to be some kind of family father figure, which isn't my cup of tea, really. Don't mind having a boss, but I don't want one to pretend to be my friend and my best buddy. But that's because I'm very British, of course. Marco, Rima, take the mic.
Here, like, who tries to have as much direct contact with the employees as possible, and who is interested. Who is interested? So they mean about that boss.
Yes, the boss is interested in the people who work for him. Okay.
Oh, about their employees. Okay.
Okay. It's quite normal for a boss to really try to learn everybody's name and to learn a little bit about your personal life. It can seem a bit nosy sometimes. Because, as I say, there's this sort of, we're one big happy family here.
And what they do actually at the job, at the work, or about their personal life?
Both.
What they do at the work what
There's
they are doing,
very
or
there's a very narrow line between work and family life. It kind of all merges. Personal life and work life kind of merge together in a lot of Australian organisations. People know each other's families, where the kids go to school. Yep, you don't clock off, go home and forget about work, and you don't leave your house and forget about your home when you go to work. Okay, it kind of all mingles into life in general. Maybe it's because they can do a lot of outside stuff as well. You don't have to invite somebody into your home. You can invite them to the beach for a picnic. Can't do that in the UK. It's too wet and cold. Okay, so for next week, we're going to move on. We're going to stay with... Sorry, tough guy, we're not doing genitives and possessives yet. But we're going to discuss another part of this culture, Australian culture. And that's... Yeah, when you're the boss, and you have to deal with problems, you have to deal with people making mistakes. So if you're buddy with everybody, how on earth do you tell somebody they've made a mistake? How do you deal with problems and conflict within the organisation if you're everybody's best bud? And it can be quite difficult, not only to do to somebody, but also to have done to... But you're my mate. You can't sack me. Yeah, so we're going to talk about that next week. Okay, how is criticism handed out? How is it dealt with? And what's the best way to do it? And also, how do you do it in your organisations, in your country? I mean, it's difficult for me sometimes just helping people with their English, because it is an implied criticism to correct somebody's English. I try to make it clear that I'm not criticising, I'm just trying to help. But I have to say some people in some parts of the world do find it as like an attack. And so I strictly restrict it to the network, and I try to keep it in sessions and on the forum. So I try not to take it out into Facebook, onto social media, even if they're in the Facebook page, even if they're visiting the Google Plus group. I've kind of backed away from that part of it. So come to the forum, you know what you're getting. Come to a session, you know what you're getting. But I'm not criticising, I'm just trying to help. And I think people who come regularly know that. But yes, how do I deal with that? And it can very, very much vary from person to person. You just mute. Shiny, if only we'd got the mute button in real life. Can you imagine? And the block. Be great, wouldn't it? Charlie Brooker did a very good Black Mirror episode on having that functionality in real life where you could block people and mute people and basically just remove them from your circle. And yeah, but we can't do that yet, so we have to deal with this sort of stuff. Okay, so before we go, any questions before we finish? Any questions? Anything you would like to say? No? Everybody's so quiet. We love you.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't mind that at all. I think you can't have too much love in the world. Okay, Lisa, you're new here. Can you hear us? Can we hear you? You can hear us? Great. How about if we can hear you? Do you have voice? Do you know how to use it? Yes, I see you're a 1-day-old newbie. Okay, if you don't want to speak this session, that's fine. We don't mind people coming for a while to just listen. But don't kick yourself later and think, "Oh, I wish I'd spoken." Reem, it depends. Yes, not it is depend. It depends. You could say it does depend. So, but it depends on the person and how close they are to you. Yes, I mean that's why they say don't work with family. It's very difficult to tell somebody off when they're a family member. Traum.
Yeah, I learned when I wanted to help a woman, mostly a woman, because I met them in school, and they are from abroad and live here and and they have their own family here, and their German wasn't perfect at the time. And when I wanted to correct them, it was not a good idea. None of them did like it, and I didn't want to correct them. Yes, correct, but not to say that's wrong. I just want to help them to get better in their German. But none of them understood it.
It's really difficult, isn't it?
And I don't do this anymore.
I know. I keep asking you to.
Yes, no, a grown up, it's not so easy. I mean, I learned it here to get corrected from you, and you are erbarmungslos, as you know. Every point and question mark and so on has to be there where it belongs to. Yes, but outside in the world, to correct a grown up, it's really not so easy, because they are confronted. Yeah. And I don't see them as a grown up. Yes, for me, I don't do this anymore. In case they want it, but most of them, and I have to say, I met them afterwards some time ago, and I have to say their German hasn't improved very much.
That's why I always say when you start learning a language, you do have to go back to a childlike state and be, as you were as a child, more accepting of help. Not
as a grown up, it's so hard. It's so hard.
I know. We have an ego. We don't like our ego to be attacked. But the danger with not accepting criticism and help and correction is you don't improve. And that's it. And I do try to be gentle and to do it with humour whenever possible. I agree, Marco. I try. And I try not to say, I told you that before. That's the one I hate. I hate that. I told you last week. No, I try not to do that.
They get the feeling back how a child feels when they have to learn something. They get more patient when they have, even for a teacher it would be good. Because some don't have any patience when the kids don't understand it very quickly as they should. And now okay. I have learned.
Yeah, we can. That's what we're here to do.
To be corrected, even it hurts, and even it gets me down. It makes me, and it makes me small. It depends on my momentary situation, on my momentarily mood.
Yep. By the way, Trump, you are crashing. I think we're all crashing, so maybe I'm crashing.
No, I hope so.
Oh, you are crashing.
I'm crashing now. Everybody's crashing. Oh no!
Okay, she's gone.
Dear. I think I've gone too. I think I'm crashing too, but no, I think it was just Tram was crashing. She's gone. We could hear her disembodied voice though, so I hope she heard me say bye. Okay, so Lisa, it's no problem. Enjoy listening, and you're welcome to any session to just listen for a while, but eventually You will have to take the microphone. Okay, a little bit of homework for next week. Okay, I'm going to put a video on the forum. Okay, and I want you to watch it. Okay, so it's a video of the kind of way to criticize people, but using humour, because I find humour works. Okay, and it's a very famous video. You might not have seen it, but it is quite famous. I'll give you the link because you'll find it in an odd place in the main part of the forum. I put it there today, but you might not notice. It's in the news, and it's on the bit about the Oscars and getting it wrong. Okay, and it's Paul Hogan addressing the Oscars in a very Australian way. It's quite old, 1980 something, but it's still funny. And it's how to criticise, but make people laugh at the criticism that you're giving them. Okay? So I'll send that one to Traum as well. So watch the video, ready to discuss it next week. Okay? Lisa, I'll send you an invitation to be in my contacts, okay, and then you'll see when I'm online, etc. Okay, so I'll be on Google Plus in 25 minutes, and we'll be carrying on talking about how robots are going to steal all our jobs. There's a vocabulary challenge, but it's yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, by the way, the rogue robot has gone. Yay! I caught him. He's back in my inventory, the naughty little boy.
Oh really?
Yeah.
The one here?
Yes,
Kitely?
the one that was running around like a
So
lunatic.
funny.
was
He
hilarious.
was so fast. By the way.
Well, can you imagine me trying to catch him? You couldn't get him. I tried to be ahead of him and click as soon as he no, didn't happen. Because once I could click on him, I could have. He was a naughty little robot. So yes, there is a vocabulary challenge, but it's a roundup. Vocabulary challenge 5 roundup shiny. Okay, here's the link. So it's a roundup of a few previous challenges. So no need to put in the words, but I have given you an extra challenge to maybe look at the pictures and maybe come up with a little short story for the writing section. That's up to you. But as I say, there's no list of words that you need to post up. They've all been posted up before, okay? So you can find them and just check. So it's a check, can I remember the vocabulary I think I learnt in the previous challenges? Okay? Okay, so I'd better go. And I'll see you in Google Plus, hopefully in Webinar Jam in a bit. The link to register is in the forum and in Google Plus. So no excuse not to find me. Take care then. Bye. See you. Thanks for coming. Bye bye.
Bye everybody. Later.
Thanks, bye. See you.
Translating one language into another, you might have an interpreter, somebody who's very skilled at translation, but you can also interpret people's behaviour. You can interpret or misinterpret body language, tone of voice, jokes, dangerous things. And we said last week that Australians see themselves as open, relaxed, friendly. We met Katie on Tuesday. I've lost track of the week, but on Tuesday. And, you know, she's from that part of the world, not strictly Australian, but lived there. Born and raised in New Zealand. Very open, very friendly, I thought. I don't know if you all agree. Typical Australian. Okay, if it's breaking up, I can give you the stream link, which will have a clearer, but there's always the danger of lag. Okay, as April found out on Tuesday, I think it's about 6, 7, 10 second delay between what we say here and what goes into YouTube. And that's nothing I can do about that. That's a YouTube thing. Just a bit. Oh, sorry about that.
That is big disadvantage. That is big disadvantage in conversation.
It certainly is.
Of
It
course.
can be. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything I can do to improve my sound quality in World. I'm using my usual browser. I have cleared my cache. But, okay, if you can... I mean, of course, yes, in some circumstances. And you can generally tell by the nature of the invitation and what happens when you get there. But not necessarily. Yes, say nice things about her. We only ever say nice things about people on the network. Well, when we're streaming anyway. When we're not streaming, well, you can make your own mind up what we say. Okay, so who would like to start reading? Save my voice. I think I've caught Shiny's cold. I was coughing so much this morning. It's calmed down now, but I've got a cup of tea here and a bog frog. Yes, you heard me. I've got a bog frog. You have to go to Boston if you ever want to know what a bog frog is. Yep, Monique, thank you for volunteering. Okay.
Okay. Australian openings. Yeah. For example, an invitation to meet at the weekend is often interpreted in some culture as an offer of friendship. However, behavior like this is part of the culture and does not necessarily mean anything special or that you will have a lot of contact with this person again.
Yeah. Not necessarily interpreted. By the way, nicely caught that one. Interpreted, yeah. I mean, often we think about interpretation in sort of
life in your country, and also what are typical topics for small talk in Australia, and more about Australia. So I think I'm not sure if we answered the last question. No. So if an Australian invited you to,
we didn't really get onto that. We talked about small
Exactly.
talk and the awful price you have to pay for making small talk in Australia is to learn about Australian rules football and have an interest in the big horse races in Australia. There's one particular, the Melbourne Cup. Everybody goes nuts over it, and it is the topic of conversation for weeks before and weeks after. In fact, people take time off work to go, or just to watch it on television. And that's a pretty high price, I think. And then we got on to, or we were about to start, and I think we just basically asked the question, but we didn't really discuss it, I don't think. Is if an Australian invited you to their home, would it mean you're close friends? Are you best buddies? Because somebody says, why don't you come round for dinner tomorrow? Why don't you come to my party at my house, at my home? It's a big deal in some cultures to be invited into somebody's home. You think yes because Zom said yes. Don't believe everything Zom tells you, Shiny. Hello, Zom. By the way, Zom sometimes watches these just to find out what we've been getting up to.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi, Reem. Nice to see you. And welcome into the Skybox. We're going to stay in the same place this week as last week. I know I like changing the venue, but I kind of like being in the middle of the road and overlooking a river. It suits my mood today. So, nice to see you all. As a recap, can anybody tell me what we were talking about last week? It's not a trick question, I do know. I'm not trying to get you to remind me. I have actually got a note here about what we finished speaking about last week. But I just want to see if anybody who was here can remember. Me being mean.
Yeah.
You listened to the recording, Marco?
Oh.
Yeah, you weren't here last week, were you? You listened. Great. That's another reason for streaming, by the way. If you're coming to a series like this where we've been discussing the same thing for a few weeks and you miss one, it does mean you can catch up the book reading as well. If you miss one of the sessions but you attend regularly, it's not a bad idea, even if you fast forward a little bit, just to get an idea. Oh, what did I miss? Did I miss anything? And can I catch up? And you can ask a question in the forum, don't forget. Okay. Monique, take the mic.
Okay, last week we were talking about the last three questions that you left us, and we were talking about how important is socializing in business.
Put up with it. I'm going to make you do most of the talking anyway. So another volunteer, please. Any questions before we move on? Anything you'd like to say? Everything's okay? Good. Well, let me just ask each of you, because I like you all to talk in these sessions. So, let me see, who turned up first? I think it was you, Marco. Is it very meaningful if you invite somebody to your home? Or is it somebody, you just invite anybody from work, meet them in the street? What meaning does it have for you?
Well, it's maybe it doesn't mean like that we will keep that friendship, because it's not big deal like give someone a meal, but actually.
I mean, do you often do it? Do you often have people round? That's what we call it, by the way, to have someone round. Nothing to do with the shape, okay? So if you say, why don't you come round? Yeah, why don't you come round for coffee? That's the normal. It used to be for tea, but now it's for coffee. Why don't you come round for coffee? Okay.
Yes, but it is yes. Now it's.